Good morning, Ma'am Pards, Sir Manielan, Sir Ryan. So this morning we'll be discussing the first series of our lecture. It's all about the peace process. First, we'll be discussing the peace process in our government. Then later, we'll go out to the outside world, to the other countries. Then what about this peace process? There's a question here. What started all the violence? Is there a way to end the conflicts? Maybe in your mind you have your own answer. What do you think? Well, this is virtual. It's up to you to answer those questions. Once again, what started all the violence? Is there a way to end the conflict? If your answer is yes, how? If it is no, it's also how. So it's up to you to decide. Let's move on. What about this peace process? When we talk about peace process, peace comes from having able to contribute the best that we have and all that we are toward creating a world that supports everyone. But it is also securing the space for others to contribute the best that they have and all that they are. That's according to Abiola. And I think we have a lot now of ideas about peace since we're already second-year students. And I think you can understand what Abiola said about this. So once again, having able to contribute the best that we have. So, kaya nga, we said that peace starts from within. Then after that, it would radiate to others. So let's move on. Our objective this morning, first, explain the different political groups that were engaged in armed confrontation with the armed conflicts of the government and deliberate on the strategies used to end the conflict non-violently. Second, discuss intelligently the issues raised by the different political groups as their rallying point on going against the government. Third, critically analyze the objectives on having peace process with different political groups. Then the fourth objective of this morning, deliberate critically on the provisions of the peace agreement between the MNLF and JRP, as well as the MILF peace process and JRP. Although masasabi natin na this already bahaw, but once again we have to restudy because I still believe that this peace process is still ongoing after the agreement of this MILF. And we all know also that there was already an agreement between the MNLF. If you still remember the 1996 peace agreement, well, we will tackling that later. Then the fifth, identify issues that led to the failure on the agreements with specific political groups and failure in the process, in the peace process itself. If you still remember with Pinoy, what he said, anong sabi niya? ARM is a failed experiment. So ito yung sa number 5 identity. So let's move on. Still remember this president, the first lady president? The efforts have been made to enter into peaceful negotiation or settlement with the rebel groups. If you still remember, there are a lot of attempts during the time of Corazon Aquino, napatalsikan siya sa kanyang pwesto. Then, kaya nga, there was an attempt of the so-called negotiation in order to settle the conflict non-violently. If you still remember that the one that were taught before about this non-violent, the non-active violent, still remember Gandhi. So, he was the proponent of that. Next. peace process with the armed groups in the Philippines have been engaged armed confrontation with different rebel groups. One of the approaches in attaining peace in the country, particularly in Mindanao, then did not prove to be effective in resolving conflict, then worsened the situation. Then it's written the military operations did not show any improvement in peace conditions of the country, particularly in Mindanao. Tingnan lang natin. So let's move on. The political groups, look at the picture. This one, with the leadership of Maas, Miswari, though sabi na resolve ba, pero ayaw niyang tanggapin, alam natin yon. Then what about this one? With Sison, the Communist Party of the Philippines. Of course, parehante yan sila dito sa CPP-NPA. Magkaparehante yan. These political groups. Remember this one? Now, ito, pinakapaborito natin, or ninyo. Ito, leader ito ngayon, kinuha ni Duterte. Ito yung pinakakritik yata. Is this Trillanes? And I think so, siya yata yan. About the Ram Boys. Okay, then what about this one? Though may agreement na dito, kaya nga balik-balikan natin uli, this part of the peace process, kaya nga may bar na tayo, pero I don't know what will happen. Sana hindi magiging another failed experiment. So, these are the political groups na nandito sa ating bansa. Then the Philippine peace process was institutionalized and strengthened by the Executive Order 125. And it was issued on September 15, 1993 and defines the approaches for the comprehensive peace process and the creation of the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, and we call that OPAP. Until today, this OPAP is still existing, that aims to attain the genuine and lasting peace in the country by setting the framework on peace process. So ito yung remember, we have a peace process in our country. Kailan lang? Issued September 1993. So, this was the creation of the OPAP. Alam na alam natin, we have OPAP here in Cotabato. OPAP, parang annex office nila. Now, the Philippine peace process, you look at this diagram. Peace process is anchored on the principle that is community-based. When you talk about community-based, people should be involved. Then, it must lead to the new social contract or compact that would lead to equitable, just, humane, and pluralistic society. Look at this. Equitable, just, makatao, at saka yan, pluralistic society. Kaya nga, community-based then to pluralistic society. Then the next, it seeks a principle and peaceful resolution of armed conflict with dignity for all concerned. Community-based, that's people, then it should be involved, lahat ng mga tao, especially in our society. Then concern, dignity for all concerned. So the three, they are interrelated peace process. Next. In the Philippines, we have the so-called, remember this lalabas ito in your compre, in your examination, and this was introduced itong 6 paths to peace. This is vital components that comprise the overall comprehensive peace process in the Philippine government, in which until today, we are still using this 6 paths. Then the 6 paths to peace from the Executive Order 125 mandates that the government comprehensive peace efforts shall be pursued following the 6 paths to peace as recommended by the National Unification Commission or the NUC on the basis of several consultation. So, ibig sabihin, this executive order, remember this, that was September 1993, Executive Order 125, there were several consultation among the stakeholders before they came up with these 6 paths to peace. So from the national recommended to the National Unification Commission or the NUC. First path. You look at the drawing. The socio-economic reforms, we have political and constitutional reforms, and the hostilities disposition of forces. Yan. The first part, pursuit of social, economic, and political reforms aimed at addressing the root causes of the internal conflicts and social unrest. Look at this. Economic, yan. Political reforms, yan. In order to address the so-called the root causes of internal conflict. If I will ask you, what do you think is the root cause or causes of this conflict? I think you have a lot of answers. Pero hindi nga harap-harapan, kayo na lang sasagot sa sarili ninyo. Then, may require administrative action. Yan, very important. New legislation and even constitutional amendment. This path, especially on the economic, there are a lot of attempts itong chat-chat para maisakatuparan itong path na ito. Pero kahit na walang chat-chat, di tango na lang tayo. Pero this path, yan, social, political, in order to address the root causes of internal conflict. So, kailangan ito. Yan, at saka yan, the cha-cha. What does this second? Consensus building and empowerment for peace. Remember this, second path to peace, consensus building and empowerment for peace. Includes continuing consultation on both national and local levels. Then there is a need, tinatawag itong the reform agenda. Then the mobilization and facilitation of people's participation in the peace process. So once again, consensus, building and empowerment of peace. Dapat involve lahat. There must be a people's participation. Hindi lang yung nasa kataas-taasan. That's the second path. Once again, the second path, consensus building and empowerment for peace. Third, the pursuit for peaceful negotiated settlement with the different level groups. Completion of exploratory talks, holding of formal peace negotiation. Then right after that, from this, they will be able to come up with a final negotiated peace settlement. So that's the third. Pursuit of peaceful negotiated settlement with the rebel groups. MNLF, sinasabi ng government natin ngayon, okay na. But we know very well as Mindanaoans na may problema pa rin. And some, they cannot accept another agreement of the MILF with this BARM. Because some, siguro marinig natin, BARM is only in Maguindanao. Hindi yan para sa amin. In Basilan, in Tawi-Tawi, ayun, kanya-kanyang ideya yon. But that's the problem now. But the government is trying to reach out those groups. But today, with the administration of Duterte, sabi niya ngayon una, di ba, remember, there was a negotiation between this rebel group with season. Then after that, nagkalabo-labo. Then according to the president, ayaw ko na kasi linuloko nyo ako. Pinapatay nyo mga pulis ko at saka ang mga sundalo ko. So but that's under this. Negotiated pursuit of peaceful and negotiated settlement with the different rebel groups. Fourth, implementation of the program. Kung nagkasundo na, of course, may mga programa. Same is true of what happened to the MNLF before, now the MILF. There was reconciliation, integration of mainstream society, especially the rebel groups, and you still remember with the so-called integris, the time of MNLF until today. Then rehabilitation, yung mga kampo, kung ano mang nasisira during the war, the conflict, rehabilitate. Then remember also this, when na-amnesty, pinatawad sila. You look at the drawing. Yan, ang iba binigyan ng livelihood. The measures to respond for concerns of legal status. Yan, security and community assistance program. This community assistance program is very, very important because those rebels na hindi pwedeng ma-integrate into the police as well as to the military, they will be given livelihood. If you still remember with especially the time of the MNLF, binigyan sa kalabaw, traktura, sa bundok para mamuhay, babalik sa mainstream society. Pero right after that, wala man tayong patunay, pero may sinasabi, mga traktura, mga kakalabaw, binibenta, then later on, manghamon na naman ulit sa government, mamundok kami kasi hindi kami tinulungan ng government. And I think we can attest to that. Taga-tito tayo, alam niyo yan. Kasi walang pera. Pero alam din natin may pera. Kung saan napunta, tayo lang may alam kung saan napunta yon. That's not anyone hearsay. Totoo yan. May pera. Billion ang pinag-usapan. May black grant na billion pinag-usapan. Pero, I don't know kung saan. Kayo nang bahala. Okay? Fifth, you look at this. End of hostilities, disposition of forces. You look at the drawing, tapos na, nag-negotiate tayo. Ito nangyari ito with the MILF at saka the MNLF noon. Yan, decommissioning, sinusurrender yung mga baril. Kaya nga, seeks to measure the welfare and protection of civilians, reduce the impact of the armed conflicts on them, recognizing the possibility of continuing hostilities even as peace is pursued by the way of peace. Yan, ito na nga yun. For the welfare and protection of the civilians. Kaya nga ibalik, especially ito. Ang mga tao kasi pag may ganyan, tumatapang. Pero pag walang ganyan, parang basang sisiw. That's really the problem with us. Kahit saan mangyari, pero lalo na sa atin. Diba, minsan noon, yung wala pang decommissioning, everywhere. Pupunta ka doon, may mga ganito, ang tapang-tapang. Sobra pa sa mga sundalo at pulis. I think you can attest to that. Sir Mangelen, Sir Lontong, at saka si Ma'am Pards, we can attest to that. Matapang hatao kapag merong ganito. Pagtanggalin yan, parang basang sisiw. Would you agree with me? Well, kayo nang bahala. Next, to continue with the fifth path, it also involves the promotion of the welfare and protection of the civilians. Sabi natin kanina, pag wala na kasi mga baril, wala na, masaya yung mga tao in the society, in the community. Then reduce the impact of conflict on them. Kaya humanizing the conflict. Yun, tao tayo, wag tayong magyera. masaya tayo, especially the children. Kasi pag may gera, ito ang pinakakawawa, natutraumatize itong mga batang ito. Then later on, paglaki nila, ini-inculcate, ini-indoctrinize, magrebelde tayo ulit kasi wala pulos ang government. That's really the problem. Okay? But in this fifth path, dapat tapos na ang hostilities, ang mga karahasan. Kaya dapat ito wala na. Kaya nga I'm happy with the war now, na although may decommissioning, binabalik itong mga baril na ito, sinusurrender. By the way, the term is decommissioning para hindi masyado mawala. Pero usually, sinusurrender yung baril na yan. Para wala nang karahasan, para we live in a peaceful society. Next, the last one. 6, tough build, nurture, and enhance a positive climate for change. Since the 5th is the end of hostilities, ito naman ngayon, we have to sustain, to build, to nurture, and enhance the positive climate for change. Kaya na, tayo, personally tayo, why we took up this course, peace? Because we want to enhance the positive climate for change, especially now. May pagbabago na, wala nang gulo. But although there are mga split groups from the rebel groups, nag-rebelde naman ngayon, pero umpisa natin. We want to enhance the positive climate for change. And this includes continued confidence building measures between the government and the rebel groups. Itong confidence building measures, I was invited as one of the lecturer yung sa decommissioning. Yung first is parang kami yung gumagawa ng module kasi that's part of confidence building. Nandoon yung mga police, the BF, as well as the sundalo. So, nag-aaral sila sabay. Okay? Nag-aaral sila sabay. So, ang ganda na nangyari. Then, peace advocacy. Tuloy-tuloy. All of us, we want to be an advocate of peace. Then, most of all ito, education. Kaya nga tayo, mga peace educator, trabaho natin. Then, I told you, itong peace education na ito, it will start from our family. From within first sa sarili natin. Then, it will radiate to the family, then to the society in general. So tayo yung mag-umpisa. Kasi our world nowadays is very chaotic. Talagang daming hostilities. Ang daming problema. Okay? But papasok itong education, that's why I'm happy na tayo, at least kumukuha tayo ng peace education para mapalaganap natin itong enhancing the positive climate for change. Because we want peace. Now, there are also 5 components of the implementation of the peace process. You look at the diagram. Governance and empowerment. Ito kasi, if there is a good governance, walang manggulo dyan, then all the people will be empowered. Diba ang ganda? Good leadership, good governance, walang magrebelde. Then, after that, development and economic rehabilitation center. Economic rehabilitation. Kaya nga, pag ang tao may makain, kaya nga sabi natin, peace and development. And we can separate the two. Yung peace at saka development. If there is peace, there is development. There is development, there is peace. There's more of this. Yan. Kaya nga in the city, I'm happy na marami ng mga mall. Marami makapagtrabaho. Kaya nga wala ka nang maririnig ngayon. May carnapper, may kidnapper, may bike napper, may motor napper, etc. Ano ay? Kasi nakakain ng tao. Pag walang makain yan, magrebelde yan. The next component, healing and reconciliation. Time to heal. Kaya nga tayo mga peace educator, tayo yung maglilive dito. Our biases with each other, sana mawala na. Bisaya ka man, Moklo ka man, wala na yun. Sabi ko na yan sa inyo noon, we have to, instead, kasi ngayon may wall tayo. We have the biases, prejudices. Then sabi ko sa inyo, we have to break that wall and we have to build bridges. And that's part of this healing and reconciliation. Na ako, as teacher, alam ko, love ninyo ako. At alam ko rin, alam din ninyo na love ko kayo. Magkaiba man yung relihiyon natin, but we're the same. We are Bangsamoro. For the sake of humanity. I am Christian, I am a Bangsamoro. You are Muslim, you are a Bangsamoro. And I think, that's part of this healing and reconciliation. Kaya nga, I'm very happy with the three of you. And I think yung binigyan niya ako ng pagkain, that's a sign, that's a gift. Kasi nga, I really appreciate that one. Kayong tatlo, Ma'am Parida, Sir Mengelen, Sir Ryan. The act, yung pagbigay nyo sa akin is very touching. And I don't think that's bravery. Kasi yung kita ko yung your sincerity na you appreciate me as your kapwa kahit na Christian ako. Kaya nga, that's part of healing and reconciliation. By the way, salamat sa inyong mga kagandahang loob na ibinigay, pinakita sa akin. And I hope masuklian ko din yan sa kagandahang loob na ipakita sa inyo and vice versa. Then how much more to our community. Kaya nga ako, I'm very, very happy with my experience. Halos lahat ng mga community na bigyan ko ng culture of peace, mga Muslim communities. Napunta na ako sa Tawi-Tawi, Basilan, sa Hulo, talking about peace education. Kasi that's one way, that's part of healing and reconciliation. Then, the next component, inculturation of peace and advocacy. What about this inculturation? I think you have an idea what is inculturation. Kaya na siguro sa sagot. Inculturation na alam natin, pagpasok natin doon, hindi naman do not introduce your own culture. Papasok ka doon, the people there, that community, they have their own culture. Then, you adapt that culture. Anong kinakain nila, i-adapt mo. Anong mga gawain nila, you have to adapt. Para malalaman, maintindihan mo sila sa kanilang sariling kultura. Kaya nga tayo mga peace people, sana itong differences natin, umpisahan natin yan. Kahit na among the Bangsamoro, grabe, di ba? Alam niyo yan. Kayong Maguindanaon. Kayong Maranao. Kayong Iranon. Ang kawawa ang Badyaw. Yung mga minorities. Lahat pahambog. But, itong tinatawag inculturation of peace, yun bang put your feet on their shoes para makilala mo sila. Kaya napansin ninyo, pag ako, if matao ako Maguindanaon, happy kayo, uy, matao si Sir Maguindanaon. Although, konti lang, maintindihan ko man, hindi talaga fluent, pero yung the feeling ba, na I am with you. Same is true, ako ay am a Bisaya, ay am a Cebuano. Si Ma'am Pards, pag mag-Cebuano sa akin, happy ako. Kasi, alam niya, ito yung kultura ko. Di ba ang ganda? So, wala nang biases. Kaya nga, I think Ma'am Pards knows that one. Every time tatawag ako, magte-text kami, kay textmate man kami, nandun yung ha-ha-ha, mag-joke-joke. Kasi parang lubusan na namin, hindi naman totally nakikilala, but this is part of peace, yung inculturation. Okay, I hope you understand that component in implementing the so-called peace agreement. That's in our own personal way. Pero pag sa ano yung pang formal, yan, it can be applied. Okay, next, the last component, continuing management of conflict. Continuing management on conflict. Yes, of course, sabi nga kanina sa first tanong, is there conflict? How can we resolve that conflict? So kung meron man, kasi that's part and parcel of one's life, kaya nga, tuloy yung tinatawag nating the management. Kaya nga, humanizing conflict. What about this humanizing conflict? yun to, as a people, mag-usap. Huwag yung pagalit. Huwag yung magpatayan. Kaya hopefully with this peace education, I'm happy with this also. Kasi yung mga rido na ubusan ng lahi, Islam hindi nagtuturo. Kaya nga only in the Philippines. Kasi minsan itong conflict, hindi na manage talaga. Okay. Kaya nga ngayon, happy ako na, uy, after 30 years, ang magparyente, nagkasundo. Ang ganda. Kaya nga, humanizing conflict. Sana tuloy-tuloy na yon. Kaya nga, minsan yung sa undergrad ko sa peace, kasi one time, may nagpaalam sa akin, Sir, maaga ako uwi, sir, kasi baka maabutan ako, may karidyo, kasi ako. Kasi paggabi, delikado. Sir, uwi ka na. Pero sabi ko sa klase, alam nyo, kayo, young minds, young people, kaya kumuha kayo ng peace. Kung may karidyo mong pamilya ninyo, sana ito, manage the conflict. Kung mag-game professional, umalis kayo dyan para mabago yung senaryo. Kasi pag hindi natin babaguhin yon, wala talagang mangyari. Ubusan ng lahi. Sabi ko na, pag hindi yan maresolban nyo, tuloy-tuloy, hindi may napapansin na lahat na bangsa muro maubos. Ayan. Then, tulala sila. Totoo, maubos kasi blood-related, minsan magkapatid, mag-uncle, nagpapatayan, ubusan ng lahi. That's a problem. But for us peace educator, kahit naggalit tayo, marunong tayo magtimpi, marunong tayo mag-manage. Kaya nga, sana it would radiate to the whole world. Pero by the way, our problem here, the internal conflict in Mindanao, hindi lang dito ha, everywhere in the world, especially yung mga bansa na talagang may mga rebelde, talagang may gulo. Pero with this component on the peace process, kaya nga kailangan ito. That's the fifth. Once again, continuing management of conflict, humanizing conflict, or the conflict. So ito na yun, there are causes of conflict. There are a lot, pero may nakasulat dito. What about this communication? Can this be the cause of conflict? What do you think? Hindi, no? Pwede rin. Miscommunication. Pero may mga ganon, pwede ma-resolve. Then we have also the so-called the problem solving, decision making. Kaya nga, kung may conflict na yan, pwede itong gawin. Usap tayo, dialogue tayo. That's why, for us, we have also to study more about interreligious dialogue. Understand the religion of others. Do not think na your religion is the only true religion in the world. Kasi may mga ganun ba, makikitid yung pag-iisip. Christianity is the only true religion in the world. Magsabi ng mga Islam is the only true religion in the world.